Welcome back everyone to another video. I hope all of you are having a fantastic day. And for today's video, we're going to be doing another gear related. So we're going to be talking about the Petzl Zigzag, which I have here on the table beside me. For those of you that don't know what the Petzl Zigzag, well, you're going to find out in this video what it is, how it functions, and I'm going to give you guys some cool little tricks here and there towards the end of the video that might help you in your day-to-day operations. So we're going to be talking about how it pertains to tree work specifically, although this device can be used for climbing in any sense, but for us it relates to tree work because that's what I do. So I'm gonna be giving my perspective on this device. I know that there's a lot of videos out there on this device already, but I feel like a lot of them miss something, a lot of the nuances that come with this device, right? A lot of these videos can give you what the device is and how it functions, and that's where it stops. I feel like I'm going to give you a good perspective as it pertains to work, right? Because these devices can be very expensive and we all have different styles of climbing. So I feel like I'm going to give you that insight when it comes to utilizing this device, and if it makes sense for you to be able to purchase that, you know, you'll have a better informed decision when it comes to that. So I'm going to break this video down into sections, and then I will bookmark it as well in timestamps so you guys can skip around if you want to. If you want to skip all the info and just get down to the tricks and tips and all that stuff, or whatever you're interested in. But I'm going to give you guys just a brief little history on the device to start. After that, we're going to go down into some of the specs, you know, some of the details when it comes to this device, like what types of ropes you use and stuff like that. And after that, we're going to get down into some of the functions of how to use it, right? And tips and tricks, you know, little things that I've learned here and there that might help you with certain tree work related scenarios. And yeah, that's how we're gonna end off the video. But this one's definitely a lot of work, so before I end the intro, I just want to say please like, comment, and subscribe. Definitely help me out there. I'm taking a lot of time to prep these videos especially, so it's much appreciated if you guys show me some love, please. Like I said, it does take a lot of time to make these videos, and you can show the appreciation by definitely giving me that likes and subscribe and comment. You know, are you gonna buy one? Are you hesitant still, or is it just not for you? You're a rope runner fan like I am. Get down in the video. So our journey with this device takes us back to 2012 when Petzl was rumored to release a brand new SRS climbing device. Field testing began in 2013, but quickly they had to recall as they had an incident with a German climber falling. Much testing was done, and what was discovered was the top plating where the carabiner connects, if cross-loaded, which is easy to do based on the design, could break at as low as 2 kilonewtons. A stop use notice was announced by Petzl due to potential to fall, and as mentioned before, all those devices were recalled. After a redesign later in 2014, a new version came out, now with a rubber in between the two side plates behind the sheath to help with orientation of the carabiner and to help reinforce the weak point of the previous model. There wasn't much that I could find about the 2014 version, although I do know that there was more recalls made, but currently they manufacture two different versions, the Zigzag and the Zigzag Plus, and they are a lot bigger than their predecessors. And if you couldn't already guess, these had issues of their own, with plenty of other recalls due to slippage among other problems. But it seems that this current design is a lot safer than the earlier models. Alright, so now that we've talked a little bit about where the device comes from and its history, let's talk about the actual device as it stands in today's current market. So we have two variations of this device. We have our Zigzag and our Zigzag Plus. Now, what is the difference between the two? Well, essentially, other than the price point, the Zigzag does not come with a swivel as the Zigzag Plus does. So, you're just looking at a swivel with one, the other does not. One costs a little bit less because of that, one costs a little bit more because of the swivel. And that is it. So let's talk about ropes and what types of ropes we can use with this device. So to start off with the rope diameter size, you're looking at 11.5 to 13 millimeter types of ropes. The working load limit of the device is 140 kilograms, or roughly around 308 pounds, which is fantastic for some of the bigger climbers. Another thing that I found was for the types of ropes to use, all ropes EN rated 1891 type A, low stretch incremental ropes. That's just within the guidelines that they put. That's a whole lot of mumbo jumbo to say that, you know, most rated ropes on the market is going to be good as long as it's within the specifications of the rope diameter. Although I do know some guys that run 11 mil on this and it works just fine. But what I will say to that is try not to do that. Don't do that, please. Try to stay within the guidelines because the Zigzag is notorious for slipping, especially on smaller diameter rope, and you are running a big risk on those smaller ropes. So if I were you, I'd definitely run within the diameter range that is recommended for the device, please. The Zigzag, originally created for MRS use, was a very easy transition for most people because essentially all it was a mechanical prusik system, like the hitch climber that came before it. Although nowadays, you can run it double rope or single as long as you're using a chicane. With the Zigzag Plus, it comes with that pulley swivel as well. Now, to talk about price points, the Zigzag, you're looking at $309.99 plus tax, depending on where you live. That's USD, by the way. The Zigzag Plus is going to run you $369.95 plus tax. And then if you're looking to run SRT with it, or SRS, however you prefer, the chicane would run you $159.95 plus tax. So all in all, in total, if you want the SRT setup with a Zigzag, just the Zigzag, you're looking at $469.98. If you're going to buy the one with the swivel, the Zigzag Plus, and the chicane, you're looking at a total of $529.98 USD. Okay. So with all those details out of the way, let's move on to the pros and the cons of this device. Starting off with our pros. First of all, it's very user-friendly. There's no adjustments that need to be made when it comes to the ropes, as long as you stay within the diameter range of the device and what it prefers for the ropes, then you'll be fine. Most ropes will run with the device, so it makes it easier for guys that are used to their prusik cords or climbing on Blake's hitch or whatever to transition over. It's a very user-friendly mechanical device in that sense. It's very friendly also because you have a wide selection of ropes that you can use, and you don't have to necessarily limit yourself to what type of ropes that you use. It is single-handedly, in my opinion, the best device on the market for sappy trees. So if you climb a lot of conifer, evergreen trees that produce a lot of sap, this device, in my opinion, is the best to use for that. It's very smooth, very, very smooth, and you'll notice that right away, whether you're natural crotch hind in, or if you're running on a pulley, or even a cambium saver, you're gonna find that this device runs smooth with a variety of different ropes. Also, in my opinion, it is the best device for double rope. It's just very, very smooth. And for the bigger climbers, it's also very friendly for them because, as previously stated, it will withstand weights up to 308 pounds, which is a lot. And I know guys that have had troubles and issues adjusting things like the rope runner when they're a little bit heavier, even not that much heavier, like within the 200-pound range or a little bit over, 170, stuff like that. So this device, from what I've heard inexperienced hasn't had that issue. Now moving over to the cons. The big one for me personally, not midline attachable. So you're either gonna have to be smart with how you put your rope, or you're gonna have to feed your entire rope through if you ever have to take the device off or whatever. It's very sensitive on the links. They can be cross-loaded and damaged very easily, so you have to be mindful of that. And the device can be a little bit long, so just keeping in mind in that. Most people have this issue where it will slip over time. Now, I've heard of guys running bigger diameter ropes as time passes, but I think for the price point, it's a bit ridiculous to have that issue still. If you want to run it SRT, SRS, it's very expensive. Another thing to note with the chicane, at least from my own experience, you're limited to Petzl OK carabiners because I couldn't get any other carabiner to fit into the slot. So they've designed it so that you need a Petzl carabiner to fit into the slot of the chicane. Which for me, you know, I like my DMM, so I don't want to have to buy Petzl just for a chicane, you know, but it is what it is. All right, well, there you have it, some pros and cons of the device. Now, let's go head out to the field and see how this device functions. All right, for this section of the video, we're here at the park and I have this device set up into two different configurations. So I wanted to start off with some simple stuff, and then as we progress, I'll show you guys some more advanced techniques and just some little tips and tricks and stuff that I've picked up along the way that you can utilize the zigzag with, and you know, just kind of unique little scenarios that you might need to use these things for, other than your standard setups, which is what we're going to talk about right now. So right now we have it in your moving rope system, the MRS configuration, double rope, and your single line configuration with the chicane here. So this is what you would find in the stores like we've talked about, and that's how it looks with the chicane. And here is your double rope version. So we'll go over those two before we move on to anything else, but I think we'll start with the moving rope first, and then I'll show you guys how it descends on the single rope. Keeping in mind, I will not be moving up on this rope. This is just for visual purposes. I'll only be using this rope because this is an 11 mil rope, and that is not appropriate for this device. We can only use 11.5 up to 13 mil, so keeping within those parameters, I got to use this 11.7, and although I could climb up this 11 mil, it's not approved, so could slip, therefore cause issues for us, so we want to go ahead and avoid that. So yeah, I'll be climbing on this 11.7 Yale line, and yeah, let's get started with the MRS first. Okay, so before I actually get started with the climb, I actually do want to simulate what it would be like in a normal day-to-day operation of tree work. So of course we have our line installed, we just put it in with the throw line. Now we're ready to put the device on. So this is what it looks like. Because it is not midline attachable, it means that you're gonna have to feed your rope through, right? So if I already have my line installed, I'm gonna get the bitter end of my line, the line that is the tail end of it, and I'm gonna feed it through the top, making sure that I've lined this up correctly as pictured in the diagram on the side there, that's laser etched. I'm gonna feed that tail through, making sure that the rope comes in contact with all the friction points, and I'm just gonna feed it all the way through. Now if you're smart, and once you get more practice at this, what you should do to be a little bit more efficient is have the zigzag already preset onto your rope. That way when you send the rope up in the tree after you've hit your shot with a throw line, you can just feed the rope up and your zigzag will already be installed. Therefore, you don't have to go run through your entire line of rope, right? And I can show you guys some tricks too to be able to feed the rope up here in a sec, but just wanted to simulate that real quick just to show you guys just how much time it would take, more or less. And then Let's untangle this. So we are running double rope here. I'll just grab my carabiners. Now I don't have a spliced eye, so I got to take a little bit more time. We're just going to take this and then we can, I prefer the scaffold knot, so you can run any knot approved for life support, but for me personally, scaffold knot seems to be a little bit cleaner for me, so that's just what I prefer. So just tie that on there and then we clip it back onto here just for a clean orientation, and we're ready to go. So I'll be right back and I'll show you guys a little trick if you do have it installed already into your line, just to feed it up. Okay guys, so I got this set up right here to where, let's say for example, you take my advice, like I said, and you want to be a little bit more efficient as far as not having to feed your entire rope through the device every single time. Here's a little trick that you can do. So artificially manipulated this, pretending like we're sending the rope up on my throw line, right? I got my throw line here, I'm about to pull the rope down. So I'm gonna give you guys a closer look at what we got set up here. Essentially all it is of course we already had our device set in the rope because we're trying to be fast with it. We have a carabiner down here at the swivel point, the attachment point, connected to our bag. And then we have another carabiner here with a micro pulley attached above the device. And then we put it on the top hole here. So just gonna show you guys how it kind of speeds up the process a little bit as far as getting the rope fed through, because what this micro pulley does is essentially allows you to pull your rope without having to tend it. As you can see, the rope feeds down. So I can continue to pull as much rope as needed, and that way I don't have to tend the slack on the device. I can just leave that there, pull my side of the line, and then get the rope down, and we're ready to go. So there's just a little trick there for you for being a little bit quicker as far as setup with the Zigzag, because feeding an entire rope through the system can be a pain in the ass. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, I love my midline attachability, but that's one way of combating some of that drawback of the non-midline attachability of the device. Okay, so we're ready to start climbing on our MRS system. So have everything set up. Now, just wanted to briefly mention before we start, this can be kind of an easy transition for a lot of climbers, especially if you learned on the older techniques, just because there's not a whole lot that goes into it as far as just making sure that your rope's within the diameter range that's specified for the device. And it can be kind of the easy transition, because let's say if you learned on a Blake's hitch or a taut line, you're used to the hip thrust method, right? Or even a hitch climber pulley. So this is just a more mechanized version of that. It'd be a lot easier because you have that pulley and the mechanical advantage that comes into it, and everything just kind of glides a little bit easier. So you're going to use the same method, hip thrusting to go up if you're going MRS, and then I'm going to show you guys just a neat little trick that I learned utilizing the DMM Kinesi. You can use it with other saddles as long as you can figure out a way to make an adjustable bridge, but I'll show you guys how you would ascend normally without that to start. So for those of you that don't understand what the hip thrust method is, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to grab the line here above our links. We're just going to pull up as we throw our legs up in the air, and we're going to try to capture some of that slack that we create as we hoist ourselves up. And let's get to it. So as you can see, very similar to the Blakes, but a lot easier because you don't have to fight with the friction of rope on rope. Because everything just glides so smooth through this, the rope just feeds almost by itself. So it makes things really easy. And then to descend, you just tap on the trigger up here, and we're coming on down. Super smooth, very nice. One finger even does it. It's more than enough. So now, with that being said, let me show you a little bit of an easier way, I feel like, to ascend the tree, because there's a lot of movements when it comes to hip thrusting, and like I said, some of us just don't have the power that in the arms quite yet, so we can utilize this next trick to kind of help us without to help us not have so many moving parts when it comes to the whole motion or the range of motions that we have when ascending up. So essentially what I did is I maxed out my bridge here, created a bunch of slack, and I want this as long as I possibly can have it. You can purchase a long bridge for yourself as well. I've even seen some guys use Prusiks to be able to extend this. If you just figure out a way that's safe for you to create a longer bridge that's life rated and approved, then you can utilize this trick too. So what this does is it puts the device well above me, therefore I don't have to be reaching above, and all I have to do is lean back and tend from the bottom, and then we just go hip thrusting as well. And that mechanical advantage works wonders, and we can ascend the tree up this way without having to do so much motion and holding ourselves up with one hand while we feed with the other, because for a lot of newer guys it can be a little bit difficult. So just by grabbing at the bottom of the rope, we all have that force that we can utilize, and we hoist ourselves up. It can be a little bit quicker too, as you can see, and I'm always going to be tied in, secured. I don't have to tend it or remove that slack that I've created, because the device is tending itself basically. And then to release, same thing, come on down. But that's why I love the DMM Kanisi. You can do stuff like that. Shameless plug. But there you go, that's the MRS style. So let's move on to the SRT version now. Okay, so we're all set up for the SRT, and before we actually ascend, just wanted to talk some efficiencies as far as climbing SRS. This device excels a lot with MRS, and I'm just gonna put that out there. But it doesn't mean that you can't climb SRS. Now, ways that I like to use this device if I'm gonna climb up single rope is in this configuration. I'm gonna send this up. It is a running bowline with a Yosemite finish for life support. Send it up all the way and run up single line. That way I can get to the top, get a real nice tie-in, and then create an MRS system once I get up there. And I'll show you guys that here in a second. But just wanted to talk about that real quick, because again, this device excels in MRS. But we can utilize it in SRS as well, and that's fine. It's just working off of it. SRS can be a little bit of a pain, because as you can see, it's a very long device when you ascend SRS, right? So as you can imagine, working this in the tree and you got a lot of moving parts, it can be a little bit difficult sometimes to manage this entire device. So if we were to take away the chicane, then all we're left with is this smaller piece. So that's why I always prefer, if I'm gonna climb up SRS, typically I'm doing removals, I'm just gonna send this up, and then I'm gonna come and retrieve this by hand. That way I can take this, undo it, and create an MRS system back onto itself. That does not mean that you can't climb on this, but like I said, it just becomes a little bit more of a pain when you're working with this entire bulky thing. So we're gonna send this on up. And I'll get back to you guys once we're actually up there to show you the transfer. Okay, so let us ascend then. As you can see, that third hole on this version is actually real nice, because it can become a spot for your knee ascender hookup. This chicane is nice in and of itself too, just because it becomes a hand grip. So that way you don't have to be holding tight onto the rope. You can actually have something firm to hold here. And we're just gonna send like normal. Runs pretty smooth. Wish I wasn't so close to the trunk and I could speed run it. But you guys get the gist. There we go. All right. So now we're gonna make the transfer here. Okay, we're secure onto our lanyard there. Now, take the pressure off. And so, again, for the sake of being efficient, because this device just works so well in the MRS configuration, that's how I prefer to run it. So, whenever I do use it, it's mostly on removals, and I'll SRT up just to get a nice tie-in and then convert it over to MRS system. I hardly ever do things like pruning with this device just because I'm not a big fan of MRS when it comes to pruning and whatnot, because I'm doing a lot of redirects. But for removals, this thing is definitely in a league of its own. So we have this set up here, right? I'll show you guys just how easy it is to convert it over. Now you can bring this, you can clip this on and put it in like that. Although I would recommend just splitting it off on its own. It's gonna make things a lot easier, a little bit neater, tighter. Take the extra minutes for a good setup, please. I've learned anything, it's that proper setup can save you loads of effort and struggle. So again, just tie your personal preference knot. Me, I go with the scaffold. Boom. And we're ready to rock and roll. Now, is that to say that you can't run this SRS? Of course not. But if you're gonna take it from a guy that's actually used this for a while, I'm telling you guys, SRS isn't necessarily the best. Although if you ask my buddy Selvin, he'd probably differ, but I suppose that's just whatever you're used to. I just know that I prefer the midline attachability a lot more, especially when it comes to prunings and whatnot, because I do a lot of redirects. But this is an acceptable alternative as well. And there we go. Now we can descend, come on down, do our tree work, whatever it is that we need to do. It's just that simple. So you can see the device functions very well in both configurations, and it's very smooth regardless of anything. So there we go. Okay, so now that we've gone over the basics, I'm going to show you guys an advanced little trick that I use for traversal and also for balancing. The applications can be various. I'll give you guys some examples. Like me personally, I use it a lot for cabling. If I have to go between two sides, if I'm cabling a tree by myself, or I've used it in removal applications, you know, if I'm trying to balance a certain way, sometimes in pruning as well. Let's say you're trying to take out a limb or a lower stub or something where you don't have great footing. Sometimes you can utilize this to kind of balance yourself in the middle of a spot that doesn't have any good footing or anywhere where you can really place your lanyard to help you balance. So essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna start here with our main tie-in and then pretend, you know, we're cabling this tree here. I'm gonna set this up. They call it the M rig or the V rig. And again, in this application, we would use it for traversal between the two sides to be able to do the work that we need to. So I'm gonna set it up and then I'm gonna show you guys how it works and show you guys you know, just how useful it can be in that sense. And then after that we'll move on to some other tips and tricks. So yeah, let's get to it. Okay, so we got it all set up now, so you guys can see there. You probably recognize the setup, the M-rig setup, courtesy of Mark Chisholm. So as you can see, we ran it between this union, and essentially all I did was take these two lines, ran my working end through another union, and then clipped it back here. And then right here, to create some mechanical advantage, we added a roller pulley. This is the Petzl roll clip, just for mechanical advantage, keep everything streamlined and intact. I'll show you guys how it functions here in a sec, but did want to mention something briefly. I'm on a sycamore tree. The bark is very smooth, so I'm not going to have as much of a struggle moving this. But keep in mind, with some rougher bark trees, like for example walnut, if you were to run it on a natural crotch, you're going to find a lot of friction. So sometimes having retrievable redirects or friction savers in place can help with the traversal between 2 points. But again, this is a sycamore, smooth bark, so I shouldn't struggle too much to traverse myself, and it's not that large of a distance anyways. So with that being said, I'll show you guys how it works. Okay, so if I want to come out this way, what I got to do first is grab this line right here above the links, and I'll pull and feed that line in there, and then as you see, it'll pull me more this way. So then what I have to do is grab here, the other end of the line, pull myself closer, and then I can utilize this end almost like a hitch climber pulley, and I can pull myself closer over here. Now if I want to go out that way, what I can do is just release this and it'll pull me over out that way, or I can even utilize my legs to pull myself closer this way, or my hands, and I can pull myself out this way. That's why it's so incredibly useful and effective to have this pulley here for that easy traversal. So this top line really is what functions a lot of our movement for us, as you can see there. And what that does is I can be directly in the middle, as you can see here, without any footing, and I can position myself to do whatever type of work I need to do, or just simply travel back and forth this way or that way to get between 2 points. So the Zigzag really excels with this configuration, and I find that very useful. And here's what retrieval looks like. So just take that out, and then we're gonna take this out, just so we're not dealing with a bunch of stuff. Now that's a wide open union, so I don't have to worry about the carabiner getting stuck. I can unclip this and just simply pull. Now if the distance is very large, I would recommend grabbing this end and pulling on this end rather than this end, but in this case it's close enough to where I don't have to worry about it. But for these purposes, just for good habits, until you start learning how these things react, we'll just do it the safe way. We're just pulling on this end to be able to get my line back. There we go. Now we're back to our main tie-in here, and we can continue about our work or descend after we've completed whatever it is that we have to do. There you go. The M-rig configuration off of the Zigzag. Very nice. Okay, so before I descend down, I did want to show you guys something. Sometimes, as I mentioned previously in this video, the zigzags can slip, and you can have moments where maybe it'll begin creeping on you and it makes you nervous to descend. So for the next trick I want to show you, it's just a way of adding extra friction to the device. That way you can feel a little bit more secure descending down if you're having issues with your device, or if for whatever reason that day it's just creeping up a little bit more on you. So let me show you. Okay, if you have a ring, you can utilize a ring. If you just have a carabiner, which most of you will, then we can just do the munter's hitch. So with the ring version, all I have to do is grab a bite in my rope to load the device, feed the bite through, connect this through the bite, and then connect this onto my hip ring there, and then I can just descend like this, feeding the rope through. Now, if I don't have the ring and I just have a straight carabiner, which most of us should just carry carabiners on us, or at least an extra one, I can do the munter's hitch, which the munter's hitch, all we have to do is create a loop like so, bringing it up like so, and then taking the bitter end here, just like that. Now we're gonna grab our carabiner, grab both legs of rope. There we have our munter's hitch. So now we can do the same thing, connect it onto our side hip ring there, and feed it as we come down. And that creates added friction in case your device is slipping for whatever reason. Some of those heavier guys running these devices, especially mechanicals, you might find some creeping. So these techniques can definitely help, especially on larger descents where your device might heat up and then start slipping a little. So you can utilize this to kind of help with that. Is it slow? Yes. Not quite as fun as bombing that down, but at least you won't break your legs. Alright guys, so for the last thing that I want to show you guys before we end this video is how to incorporate the two. Here in this setup, we have SRT and MRS, and big shout outs to Fletcher Harper. I saw him do this in Kentucky for a Masters Challenge, and honestly I was amazed. So what we're going to be doing is ascending up our line on an SRT basal anchor here on this Yale Bifrost with a Taslov, and we have attached a rescue sender. So gearheads, I know you guys are gonna love this one because it's pretty gear intensive, but we've attached a rescue sender above our Taz, and we're just gonna manually ascend this up as we go. And then off of that, we've attached a Petzl roll clip. It's a triple locking one, so it cannot come out. And then we have our MRS system off of that pulley, and we're gonna run with our bag, our MRS system in a bag on our back. That way, when it's time to use it, we can just either drop the bag in a good spot, or we can keep it on us just to keep things a little bit cleaner, and then we don't have to be dealing with so much rope. So I'm gonna show you guys that now in first person view, that way you can get a close-up of it. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the trick, because I was amazed the first time I saw it. So big shout out to Fletcher Harper. He's an awesome climber. He's a real badass, and if you guys are ever in Kentucky, and hopefully he's there, you're gonna definitely get a show. So yeah, let's get to it. Okay. It's wildly inefficient because I don't have my knee asunder on, but you guys get the gist. So the cool thing about this is this. So we've essentially set up a secondary system there. And now we can attach it onto ourselves. So for those of you that prefer your MRS systems for limb walks, we've sat on the rope. It is holding us, right? So now we can go ahead and unclip off of the Taz, or we can take it off the rope, whatever we decide to do here. Me, I think I'm just gonna leave it right here. I'm gonna not block this so it doesn't go down. There we go. And now we can utilize this as an MRS system to walk out on limbs, because I know that MRS can be a little bit easier to traverse and come back. So there we go. We've done our limb walk. Everything's holding, as you can see. Boom, we can cut our limb, touch our bell, and then walk it back with our MRS off the Zigzag, which of course is super smooth and very nice. And the cool thing too is it utilizes that same rope angle, which is super nice as well. And it just helps with those limb walks. So if you plan accordingly, this can be super helpful for you, especially on some longer limb walks. We've walked it all the way back. Now we're going to go ahead and clip onto this again. Make sure that we weight it. This I can go ahead and lower. Now I'm back on this. Now that we've weighted this and we're secure, we can go ahead and undo our knot. And there you have it. You've done your limb walk, and you can continue to ascend up, or you just took care of your limb walk and that was it, and you're good to come down. But that was essentially all you had to do. So, there we go. Alrighty. Well guys, that's the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a like, comment what your favorite part on it was, if you were considering buying a Zigzag, if I convinced you, if I deterred you from buying it. Hopefully this is informational to where you guys can make a better informed decision when it comes to purchasing products, in this case the Zigzag. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it, because I definitely put in a lot of work for this one. So yeah, with that being said guys, we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.